raising your vibration, it's not always dandelions, daisies, and other flowers. There's parts of it that aren't the most pleasant. And unless you know what they are before you get there, you might kind of freak out a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 unexpected signs of things that start to happen when you start raising your vibration. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron, and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can become aware of 3 things that happen when you raise your vibration. And first off, when I raised my vibration, I didn't really have, there was, of course there was YouTube, but when I was learning about this stuff, it wasn't as readily known. Raising vibration, the law of attraction, these things back in 2011 and 12 were not as readily available. And when I was going through the process, I was kind of looking around to like friends and family. I was like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And there wasn't many people that could actually relate to me. Now, you might feel like in your life, there's people that don't get you. You might feel like you're the weird one in the friend group, the weird one in the family. And understand, though, that you have online to come to, where there's people in the chat, you see people in the comment section below that also are in the same boat, where they're going and they're beginning to raise their vibration, or they're in the process of it, or they've been doing it for a while. And there's just a lot that comes up within that process. Now, the first thing that we're just going to get right into it, this is going to seem a little bit unexpected. Now, the first thing that happens when you begin to raise your vibration that is unexpected is that things fall apart. Now, have you ever had it to where you make a choice to do something, and the moment you make that choice, even though you haven't actually done it yet, things begin to change? I've seen that, I've heard that, and I've experienced that in my own life. There's a lot of people that will try something like plant medicine, for example. And they say that once you decide you're going to do it, it's when things start to happen in your life. It's almost like that's when the process begins. I've done events and had programs before when people buy in. What happens is things start to come up for them. The process starts the moment you do it, even if you don't actually go to the event yet. For example, say you come to the Shift Experience live event or something, and you come to it, even before you show up, you will start having things in your life happen. Sometimes these things can be there to challenge you, and sometimes these things are just there to show you that you are making a shift. Now think of it like this. I'm gonna have a handy dandy part of this right here. I know because I wrote this last night before I went to bed, like a good boy, when I make my videos. So right here, we have the old self-image, the old vibration, the old way we're being, thinking, feeling, and doing based on the current vibration that we were in. And that many times is based on pattern. It's just based on that's how we were in the past. We decided at a certain point in our past, this is who we are. Now what happens is there is a safety mechanism. Our ego is a safety mechanism that keeps us safe. Now we want to become this new version of us, with the halo and everything. It's like super high vibe. Super, super high vibe. It almost looks like a sun, but it's actually a halo. And what happens is when you start making choices as this version of you, as this one, what happens is the older vibrations will start to get brought up to say, hey, this is not familiar. Oh my God, that's what I had done. It's not familiar. And then what happens is because of that, it's trying to keep you within a certain box. So sometimes people may have things happen, and they may say, oh, maybe spirit and my higher self is telling me not to do this. When in fact, many times it may be just bringing up things that come up from within. Not saying I'm an enlightened being or anything, but I have some people when they're around me, in general, it brings up certain stuff within them. And like maybe I've had people come maybe from a different country, come here, come to even my house, for example. And something that may happen is maybe there's certain processes that kind of get brought up within someone. And it's not saying I'm enlightened or anything, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that sometimes when you make a choice to do something, to be around certain people, it may bring up things that are a little bit not necessarily resolved yet. Now, when we look at this, you'll look at there's the lower negative emotions, such as anger, fear, 250, when we learn how to observe our thoughts, is neutrality, willpower. Then we have reasoning, the meaning we give things. Our thoughts create our reality. Our beliefs create our life. When we change our beliefs, we change our life. Then love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. Now what happens is, as things begin to fall apart, it's because as you raise your frequency, these things are coming to deal with. These things are coming up for you to process them. So know that it may be that certain things fall apart as you raise your vibration. Think about it like this. Think about it like you have like a little sandcastle. Yay! Sandcastle like that. Now imagine that you want to build a new sandcastle. A lot of times you got to clear this space first. Start out with a fresh foundation, and then you could build an amazing, elegant, with even a flag. That's the idea. You get the idea. So what happens is you must clear the foundation. Something that may happen is things may fall apart when you're beginning to raise your vibration. But no, it's just these lower vibes coming up to the surface for you to look at and go, whoa. Okay, I need to really remain firm and strong on my choice that I made because I'm affirming this new identity, which you'll see right there. Okay, you get the idea. Now, the second thing that may happen, it might not be the most pleasant thing. But when I went through my spiritual awakening and I began to raise my vibration, people won't necessarily understand, okay? As you raise your vibe, and you may, in a certain friend group, have been smoking, drinking, having a good time, popping a little booze, and maybe you start raising your vibration. It's not that you can't ever do those, but maybe now you're like, you know what, this isn't actually really serving me. And you just kind of decide that. Like, nah, this ain't serving me anymore. Just like that. You're like, not anymore. And then what happens is many times the people that you were so comfortable around for so long, it may not resonate as much to be doing those kinds of things. And something that happens when you raise your vibration is you may feel a little bit either guilty towards trying to be around those people, for those people to see you in a certain way, or to make them happy, or they'll just try to pull you back. They'll try to pull you into what's comfortable. Because when you challenge their beliefs, when you challenge their way of being, they may not actually like that. But what is the alternative? To do and be the kind of person everyone else wants you to be? That's not, to me, that's not even an alternative. It's about being aware that this new version of you, as you raise your, doesn't mean they're all lower vibe than you and you should, but you got to be aware of and remain firm in your choice of raising your vibration, knowing that you must first fill up your cup before you can fill up anyone else's cup. So this really is just about being aware of that. When I went through my spiritual awakening, I remember going out, I started raising my vibration. I quit smoking weed on a dime. This is back in 2011 or 12. I stopped taking Adderall for having ADHD. I stopped drinking. I stopped partying. I started meditating. I started listening to Enigma music. You guys ever heard of Enigma? It's like real spiritual. And then people would come over and they're like, Aaron, what are you doing? Why is there this spiritual music on? Why is there a candle over there that looks like you've been staring at it? And, I immediately went vegan. Like, I went to Whole Foods and spent $100 on, like, 3 things of vegan crackers. And then from that point going forward, a lot in my life changed. And that shocked a lot of people. A lot of people were like, what's going on with Aaron? Even my dad was like, Aaron, what's happening? And it looked, I see now from the outside looking in, it looked kind of crazy. I went from one way to a complete opposite way. And people just didn't understand. And that made me sometimes feel like there was something wrong with me. But the more I went down the process, the more I realized this is just me changing, going through my own metamorphosis. You may go through it quick, you might go through it a little bit longer, but regardless, people may not understand, and you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with that. You got to let that be. You don't got to do anything. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I love you. But you can understand that it makes it easier when you let people be who they are. And understand as well, don't be bitter towards them. I was bitter for a while. I was like, these people don't get me. I felt like misunderstood. I was like, they're just, then the spiritual ego comes in. And the spiritual ego is like, they don't get it because they're not awake yet. They don't get it. They're just low vibe. But you see, that keeps the spiritual ego intact. And that keeps that vibe there. So the key is being aware of that, not trying to sell it too. People ask me sometimes, what do I do in that situation when people don't understand and I want to like help them? as a light worker, as somebody that's here to you're here to raise your vibration and help other people do it too. You do it indirectly. You do it just by being yourself. And the people come around when they see you living it. I used to be like, Dad, look, did you know this? Friends, look, did you know this? And then if I'm trying to sell it in a way, it's resistant. People don't want to be sold to. But instead, I just was myself. And I stopped trying to sell it. I just started living by it. And guess what now? Got a lot of people coming to me. They're like, oh my goodness, I want to learn meditation. I want to learn this. And it's like a complete different energy dynamic. So that same thing could happen for you. If you stop trying to sell it, you just be yourself, but you remain firm in yourself over everything else. Now, this one's going to be part 3. Part 3 is going to be a 2-part thing, okay? Reason being is because I just thought of one when I was doing the video that I think is very important. So something that might happen is you might develop a spiritual ego where you are way higher vibe than everyone else in your friend group. You are way higher vibe than your family, and nobody else understands you. So what you do as a protective mechanism to justify that they don't get you is you develop this belief and this perspective that you are high vibe and they are not. And that's when the problems begin. Because this is what happens. You then have that belief, you go out into the world, reality is like a mirror, and what happens is you say, oh, and you look at them and you see them less than you, as like little small people, and what happens is then they can't relate to you anymore. You can't relate to them anymore because you got this big wall up. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you're having low vibe thoughts and stuff like that, and you're judging them. And that judgment is the actual antithesis of becoming spiritual. I think spirituality is really about accepting people, loving people. And when we develop these barriers, that's something that actually causes us to feel more alone. You know, I actually felt pretty alone during my spiritual awakening journey back in 2011-12. Because when I went through it, some people didn't understand me. I started to develop a spiritual ego. And I was like, oh, people don't get me. They're just not awake yet. It's my job to just do this. And then that caused me, and then I developed these beliefs that just nobody is awake around me. I have no other high vibe friends that I could share this stuff with. And that caused me to feel lonely. That belief became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But you want to know when things changed? When I changed that perspective. When I decided, you know what? I'm not going to judge people as higher or lower. I think everyone is in my life for a reason, for me to maybe become aware of my boundaries or whatever. But I'm going to just drop the judgment and just know that it's all perfect. And then what happened is I started to meet higher vibe friends. People in a high vibe, I mean, it's not such an ego thing to say. High vibe, low vibe. Everyone's perfect the way they are. Everyone's perfect. However, the part of this that's important is to understand is that you become more in resonance when you drop some of the definitions that you have. You might say, oh, I always find somebody that's takes advantage of me. Well, that belief, that definition will cause more and more of that to happen. So it's about being aware of that. And the second part to this is understanding that as you start to change, this isn't that's like a kind of a could be considered more of a negative thing. The last part of this is you start tapping into your own higher faculties, higher parts of yourself, higher perspectives. Let's say that, higher perspectives. When you start to raise your vibe, you will then look at some of the things in your past and see how it maybe the anger and the fear of your past, or that you even feel now, is some of your greatest gifts. When I look at my past, my painful the pain of my ex-stepmom and all the stuff that you've heard me talk about in 100 different YouTube videos, I look at that and I can see the meaning of it, of when I gave it a negative meaning and how that perpetuated more of that in my life. So that's when I knew that the next thing to do was to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I do daily videos on awareness and spirituality. I had to put that in there somewhere. I have realized I don't ever say it in my YouTube videos, and I'm going to start saying it because it's important to raise your vibration. But in actuality, this is about becoming aware of the higher perspectives. You'll relate to this in a different way. You'll also start to view people in a different way. Well, you'll bring out the best in other people. It's a very positive thing. But as you start to bring out the best in certain people, it may also bring out the shadows in certain people, kind of like I was talking about earlier. And it's bringing out the shadows so that they can deal with it. So all in all, this is about knowing where your vibration is. If you haven't calibrated your vibration yet, I have a quiz that you can take that takes just a minute to fill out, and you'll know where you calibrate as far as vibration goes. It's whatsmyvibration.com. It'll be linked in the top of the description box below. You'll also get a meditation for getting to the next level. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, peace, much love, and namaste.